been a few days since I did a live feed, actually. Hope no one is frustrated. I gotta see what video goes up on Tuesday. Making coffee. Let's see who shows up. I didn't do a live feed on Wednesday. I'm gonna start paring back the live feeds, not do them as often, because it's just, I think it's diluting content. So who's here? Oh, I know what I forgot to do. Hang on a second. There we go. What's up, Spitfire? So yeah, I'm just kind of hanging out this morning. I've got a couple sharpening things I got to do, and I'm trying to think if I really want to do a video about what I was going to do a video about. So guys, there's a video that went up yesterday. I don't know if everybody saw it. So it's a full edge repair on a knife. And then I've got a couple more videos to shoot. And then I don't know what I'm going to shoot videos about because I don't have a lot of stuff here. There's not a lot to do videos about. I'm hoping that the prototypes get here. Supposed to be here by the end of the month. They're supposed to be here by the end of the month, but you know how shipping is. Well, hello. I don't ever remember seeing you logged in on one of the live feeds. VDK Talisman, is that the one that they had all the controversy about? The one that was on Mass Drop, and then Vlad, I talked to Vlad about that, and then hey, it's my brother-in-law. I gotta take my morning reverse AIDS cocktail, so I have an overactive immune system. Why would you buy those Pakistani pieces of crap? This isn't probably the best live stream, one of the ones earlier in the month when I had a lot to talk about. Yeah, prototypes are coming. Guys, I did have to do a copyright claim. You might have seen some of that in the comments in the community tab. I had somebody take one of my entire video, and post it up on their channel. And I was like, you know, I don't mind if people use clips of my videos, and there's a few people that have access to a handful of videos that I've basically said, hey, you carte blanche, you can do whatever you want with the entire video. You can copy the whole thing, post it up, you take sections of it if you want. And usually there's a disclaimer at the beginning of those videos. This was one of my Ferrum Forge videos that they had taken the entire video and posted up on their channel as if it was their content. So I had to do a copyright claim. So, and I had somebody comment on my Benchmade Crooked River. See, I can say crooked, even though crooked. Comment saying, well, it's obvious that you just hate Benchmade. You've never liked Benchmade, so I don't know why you did a review of Benchmade knife. And I was like, I had to respond to him. I was like, the hate that I've got for Spyderco and Benchmade comes from a place where I used to love those companies. I did. I loved Benchmade knives. The Benchmade and Spyderco, those were my two favorite brands, and they were American made and all of that. And being a military guy, they were knives that I could get a hold of easily and carry, and then they tanked their quality. So I was just, why do you talk about the pocket clip, but it doesn't fit in your hand? And I was like, that's how I do in videos. I choose not to blow smoke up everyone's ass and say how great everything is. If I find a flaw with it, then I find a flaw with it. Like the rolling detent on this knife sticks out too far. It's kind of sharp. There's not much I can do about it because that's how deep it sits. This is by far my favorite shape, the favorite blade shape of any knife that has come out of Ferrum Forge. This knife is just sexy. I just don't carry it all that much because it's this one is this one would be so much harder to get refinished and everything, or for me to do the anno on. Rex 125. I don't think I've done anything with Rex 125. I know I don't like Maximet and Rex 121. I'm not that guy. So I was talking about it on I did the Knife Junkie podcast, and it's going to be up Sunday. So if you guys don't listen, you probably might want to listen to that. And Bobby asked me about the whole thing with like chasing super steals and stuff like that, which if that's what you want to chase that Rockwell number, that's fine. But for me, yeah, I don't like Rex 121. Rex 121 is just basically Maximet. And it's not that Maximet, like I sharpened Maximet that I sharpened at Blade West with Big Brown Bear. I sharpened some of his Maximet. And in a knife that's meant for it, that's great. But in a knife like a Spyderco Endura or something like that, where it's a standard grind, it's just not, that's just not where it excels. It excels in stuff like those hunting and skinning knives that Big Brown Bear makes, that Sean makes. And the problem that I have with it is, like, if you're carrying that as an everyday pocket knife and shit like that, and you're out in the field and you need to sharpen it, you can't just take like the standard stuff to sharpen it. I mean, you could sharpen it on that. You're gonna have problems. You're gonna have some chipping and stuff. But the flip side of that too is it's gonna take you forever, and you have to have specialty stuff for it. And I just choose, you know, like for the things I'm using, I got a lot of knives in 440C. I got a lot of knives in 154CM. A lot of knives in 20CV. I can't honestly tell you that there's that much of a difference. In some knives, I can definitely see it, but I can't see it in some of these small folding knives. I just can't see the difference. And like I said to Bobby, 99% of the knife folks out there, if you gave them a knife in 20CV or some other super S125V, you can't say that. Maximet, probably not. But for the majority of knife users, if you gave them a knife in 440C and then gave them the same knife in a super steel, they wouldn't know the difference. They wouldn't know, probably wouldn't care. So I'm not that guy. You won't ever see me carrying Rex 121. Probably the fucking S125V. Probably the fucking most exotic super steel you'll ever see me carrying. This is 20CV. This knife holds up really well. Just wanted to say, but this year's, I like the Cold Steel Spartan. And that's another steel right there. It was like, oh, it's not, I've got some Cold Steel knives in AUS 8 that are great. They're great. So I will tell you with these, it's a fixed blade, and yes, I agree, which is 100. Yeah, I mean, I will tell you guys, I like doing these live feeds because it gives us some interaction. That's my favorite part of this. AUS 10 now. Yeah, but I'm saying I like AUS 8. I don't think I've sharpened anything in AUS 10. Jeremy Russell. I need to get a hold of your two other compadres that all fall in the same group. I had a group of followers that like you'll see it. Like I've had this channel for like 5 years, and you have these little clusters of followers that really stick out in your mind. It's Jeremy Morris, and it's Ryan Formuth, and yeah, that's in Austin. Then it's basically Aus 8. That's the way it felt. So you, the other Jeremy and Ryan, and Jeremy Morris and Ryan are both in Texas. So you guys all stick out in my head because the other thing too is Jeremy, did you get a stonefish? I think all of you got one of my custom knives right about the same time, or ordered them right about the same time. I thought you did. Okay, so it was just Ryan and the other Jeremy then that ordered. And other Jeremy Morris has got 3 of my custom. No, actually more than that. He's got several of my custom knives. He's got a stonefish. He's got a sea snake. He's got a scorpion, which is now going to be called the Habu when it gets released. And then, guys, I'm excited about the sea snake prototypes. I was talking with Christian over at Cerberus Knives. He got his prototypes, and they're in that proprietary steel that mine is coming in, and he's pretty impressed. He says he likes it a lot. So it takes a nice aggressive edge, stuff like that. It's going to be fairly corrosion resistant. He said he opened a thing of corrosive chemicals with it and got some on the blade, and he said he wiped it off and it didn't even leave staining. He said the other stuff that he's had in that he did stuff with, and then you get something on it. He says some of those other steels, he says like VG10, he's like, oh, it would have stained it. He said it would have ate it up. Ferric chloride will mar and mark a blade and darken it real quick, real quick. So yeah, it's here. I just haven't started on. I have 3 boxes in there I haven't even opened yet. Guys, like I said, keep in mind, I recently had a death in the family, and I've been dealing with a lot of family stuff. And so, and you know, my fashion of mourning is different than others. And so I kind of just moved off the side. I did a whole box of stuff. Let's put it this way. The reason I haven't sharpened anything, I haven't sharpened anything since I did that big box for David, because I'm so out of sorts. My grandmother died, and I'm kind of out of sorts with everything. And he had this big box of knives, and I sent him back a box of knives that had a knife that I didn't sharpen. Like I missed a knife completely. And I just was like, you know what? If I'm that kind of out of sorts in my head, then maybe I should. Later, Frank. Maybe I should just make sure I'm 100% there before I fucking do it. I should be focusing on. If I'm focusing on other things, I'm not focusing on your knife, and that's 1. It's dangerous. 2. It leads to things like I sent a guy back a knife that I hadn't even touched. Granted, I sharpened everything else in the box, but I somehow missed that one. There was a lot of stuff in the box, though. I did. I think I'm gonna try and get the majority of that stuff that's here though done today. Bradley, your knife is going to be last because I'm sorry, like without a prepaid shipping label, knowing I've got to take it to the post office, it goes to the end. There's two boxes here that I have to do that with. The guy was like, oh, I forgot to do the prepaid shipping. I was like, well, right now everything that doesn't come in with a prepaid shipping goes to the end of the pile. I mean, I'll still get it done, but it's going to go to the end of the pile because I don't know when I'm going to the post office. I still owe the winner. I like the 940. I'm not a fan of their autos. I don't like button lock autos. I don't see. Okay. Autos are basically no easier to open than to flip that knife. I mean, because the Benchmade 940 is extremely easy to open. And I do like the ease of the axis lock. I'm not a fan of the fact it's got those little springs and stuff in it. But when you take and turn a knife into a button lock auto that was already easy to deploy, like super easy to deploy, you really haven't done anything except make maintenance on that knife more difficult for the owner. Because I don't know if you've ever had a button lock. Button locks are great if it's a flipper. Button locks are great in a flipper. You take it apart, clean it. It's not that hard. Button lock autos, complete and utter pain in the rectum. I would rather have, they're rough. They're rough. It takes forever. I did a video about taking apart and reassembling a auto, like why it costs extra for me to do an auto, especially if you want spa treatment. That, like the out the front autos, most of those are pretty easy unless it's the Benchmade Infidel. Have you ever seen the insides of one of those? It's got like fucking 12 little fucking leaf springs inside it and shit. I'm like, well, fucking, why? Why is this so complicated? So, yeah, it's a pain. They're a pain. And I mean, it really doesn't get you anywhere except after, like, okay, so button lock autos are great for like the first couple weeks, and then they get gritty. And then unless you know how to take it apart and clean it up, it stays that way, because it's not like if this knife gets gritty, I just take it and I put it in the sink and I wash it out. It doesn't work like that, because the pockets and springs and everything down in there, you can't get the water in. This, I can get water down in this. I can spray this thing out with hot water. Probably not even have to relube it. It's pretty smooth anyway. This is one of the smoothest knives. Smoothest action. This one, and this one's not drop shut, but like there's no friction. It's just not, it's because the blade on this is super, super light. This is the thinnest grind on any of the Ferrum Forge knives that they ever made. Super thin. So Elliot wanted it that way because that's, so if you know Mike Gavko, his thing is, like, I've talked to him. He's like, the knife must be thin, very thin to cut. And you're like, thanks, bro. Yeah, he likes really thin edges. And so when they did this collaboration, Elliot told the guys that ground the blanks, like, get them as thin as you can. And it came out amazing. This knife is a slicey tool, and it's attractive. But it wound up being the thinnest blade profile they've done on any of their knives. Archbishop is the second thinnest. Master Blaster is fairly thin, but this is like really thin behind the edge, and that makes the blade light because that's huge aperture. So there's a lot less material on this knife than their normal knives, and so it doesn't just snap shut, but there's nothing there. No friction at all. This knife has cut me way more times. Stonefish on sale. Blade HQ and Knife Center has them. Knife Center has them for... Actually, I think Blade HQ has them on sale. I think they put when they had that big Wee knife sale, I think that they, hey, what's up, Cody? How's things in England? $249. And they have them there. Blade HQ had a sale on the Wee knives, and I think they had mine reduced as well. But you can find them different places. Just search it. You can find them. Are you back, Conus? Does that mean you can carry a fucking knife? Welcome back, Conus. You show back up at this time, and you don't just need a knife. You need to carry a fucking gun. Oh. My hands hurt today. Everything hurts today. The weather here in San Diego has been weird. So we had a few days there. It was like 80, 90 degrees. It was crazy hot. And then just out of nowhere, it gets like now where it's just cool and damp. It's 62 degrees, 62 degrees right now, and it's fairly sticky. So it's supposed to be about 75 degrees today, which is about what it was yesterday. Hopefully it doesn't get hot and stay humid. That's when I hate it. Like, I could take it. If it was like 90 degrees this morning and it was still dry, I'm good with that. Like it was the other day. It was really hot, but it wasn't wet. So, guys, I don't know how long this live feed's gonna be, but I would appreciate it if you guys are here, if you give it a like. Like if we're hanging out, you're sticking around for more than just a couple minutes, I'd appreciate a like. It helps get things shared. This is that prime opportunity for me to engage with you guys and tell you to give a like. And if you're watching my videos, please drop a like on them. Car got broken into, they stole your backpack, had your wallet, 2 sets of uniforms, and a titanium Protect Mordax in it. Why would you leave that in your car? Why would you leave? That's an expensive knife. How much were those? 500? Weren't those like 500 for the titanium ones? And then if you got Elliot to carve it, it was more. You Air Force boys, your Air Force boys ain't all there. So I think that this is going to be the next video I shoot, is a revisiting. Oh, the swish is great. I just sharpened a swish. I love the Olamics. You have to look past, so Olamic is a double-edged sword with me because I know the guys. I know Eugene. I love Eugene. He's a great guy. They have every once in a while a tendency to have some misgrinds, more on the edge. I'm not saying like blade misgrinds and things like that. Every once in a while. But the fact is, like, Olamic is cool because you have the customizable options for those knives, and that's what makes them cool. And the swish is a really nice one. I didn't ever figure I'd like it because it's really fat at one end, and then the blade sweeps way up, almost like a Persian. And I usually don't like this. I love the swish. I like the 247 too. As a matter of fact, I believe that there's one coming. If Alex logs in, he could probably advise us. Alex is sending off a package to me. He said he's gonna try and do it this Saturday. There's a couple gifts in there for me, and one of them happens to be an Olamic swish, or an Olamic 247. Just wondering how I got into knives. I did a video about it a while back, but I grew up on a farm in the country, and we always had to have sharp knives, and I learned how to sharpen knives for butchering, and we butchered deer, we butchered cattle, we butchered hogs. And so it was kind of a necessity to know how to sharpen a knife. And then I went to Japan and I got into Japanese swordsmanship, and I was watching how they polish swords. And then my father-in-law is a master carpenter, and he sharpens his own tools, and he taught me how to use water stones. And so it was like a combination of all that thrown together. Like, this is how my dad taught me to sharpen, my grandfather taught me to sharpen, and then I was looking at how Japanese swordsmen or sword polishers put the full convex edge on a Japanese sword when I started taking Japanese swordsmanship, because if I'm going to study it, I want to know why does this sword cut so well? Why does it push the material out of the way like a wedge and leave such a clean cut? And so all those things combined turned into me developing my own technique of sharpening, which is different than most of anyone you're ever going to see. Everybody else does bench stones or fixtures, and I take these skinny little stones and I put them in the palm of my hand and talk to you guys like this while I'm doing it. And it just turned into something I really love to do. Like, there's a lot of times, like I said, I didn't sharpen any knives that were here for customers, but I needed to, because I wanted to make sure I gave it my full attention. I wasn't doing anything. But the other day, I was in here, a couple days ago, I was in here and I was just like kind of overwhelmed. And I just grabbed a kitchen knife and touched up one of my wife's kitchen knives. It's something that I enjoy to do so much that even if I don't have customer stuff here, like if I didn't have a customer's knife to sharpen right now, I'd sharpen my own stuff. Matter of fact, this got touched up and it's terrifying. It is super, super sharp right now. So I mean, that's kind of how it was. I mean, it was out of necessity. It can be. It was out of necessity. You know, we had at the time, it was like, I want to say 400 or 500 acres the farm was. And so you'd be out in the middle of that. You got to have a sharp knife. So you can't just run back to the farm or back to the house and get a sharp knife. It'd take you, you know, till lunch to get there and back. So, especially if you're on foot, because we only had the one tractor, and everybody's like, "Oh, didn't you guys like, oh, well, you talk about complaining about doing this and going out and doing that. It's like, what about, why didn't you just use four-wheeler?" I was like, oh, you grew up on one of them farms that wasn't poor. If you grew up the way we did, what, a four-wheeler? Yeah, we had a truck. You just couldn't get it half the places you need to go. So having a sharp knife was a necessity. And so you had to keep it sharp. But my grandfather had some of the sharpest butcher knives you'd ever want to come across. Like, remember the old Bugs Bunny cartoons where he would drop, like, split? Yeah, kind of like that. They were nightmare-inducing sharp. I have a couple of kitchen knives that are going to make it into the kitchen use. Matter of fact, let's go get that one. It was one of my dad's kitchen, or my dad's butcher knives. I'm trying to think. I think it's an old hickory. It's right here. I think it's an old hickory. So when it had a sheath on it. So if you needed to go out, maybe you dropped a buck or a doe out somewhere where you couldn't get to it and you had to butcher it on site, you could put this on your belt. Oh, yeah, here. I got one of my dad's knives here. I'll show you. This is... So when you're poor, you can't get new stuff, right? My dad got this knife from his father. I'll show you this one. My dad got this knife from his father when he was probably, I don't know, he was young. That knife has been sharpened down to the point that that is all that is left of this knife. And you know what? It's still real sharp. This was in my dad's butchery kit. This was like, he used this when it got so thin like that, he started using it like a boning knife. It used to be like a buck special. And then there's this one. You can tell this one as well has been sharpened down to a point where there's not anywhere near as much of this knife left as there was. And this one, I'm here to tell you, this knife is so sharp. This is an old Ontario, old hickory. And there's, my dad started cutting notches in this. There's 4 notches in this knife. And that means that I think he lost track, but at one point that was how many deers he had butchered out with this knife. And then he just stopped doing it. And my old man even made the sheath for it. So I come by my love of knives, honestly. My dad was, like, people laugh. My dad would be that guy that'd have like 3 or 4 knives in his pocket at a time. When I'm on the job site at work, when I had a straight blade knife, I had one of these in a pocket in my pocket. I had a small slipstone in my pocket. That's a Vinev diamond stone. The knife I carry now at work is one of Elliot's prototypes, and it's a recurve, and it's in 20 CV, so it holds an edge really well, and it cuts all day, and I can just bring it home and just touch it up on that ceramic rod, which is another thing that I would advise if you are an outdoorsman. There's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of these ceramic rods out there that you can get a hold of. I like this one. This is the one that comes with the Edge Pro kit. And you can buy these at Edge Pro. This thing is in a nice case. You can push that down in, and you've got a nice ceramic rod for touching up a knife. I don't use a kitchen steel on my kitchen knives. This stays here, and I use it on my kitchen knives. I probably should have included this in the Edge Pro kit that I gave to the paying members, but I use it. Like this is not like something, it's like my stones. I didn't give stones away with the Edge Pro kit. I just gave the fixture. So yeah, that's a great one because it comes in a little tube, and if you're out in the field and you're afraid it's gonna fall out, you run a piece of tape over it, and then you just take the tape off and pull it out, and that thing is great. And that thing will lay an edge right back up on a knife that is fairly damaged. It's based, instead of being a steel, it's actually an abrasive stone. It's like a stone. I So I have some really expensive kitchen knives that are mine, and I came out here. I came out here the other day, and I looked, and two of my knives are out of the fucking butcher block, and I was like, "God damn it! Did she put those things in the fucking dishwasher again?" These two. No, I was prematurely angry. She had cleaned them, she had wiped them off, and she had put them on a towel and let them dry so that they did not go in the block wet. And I was like, good girl. This. This is the knife that I sharpened. And I don't do it very often, but I took this knife to 12,000 grit. So I don't know what it's gonna cut like, but I'm gonna tell you right now, this is nightmarish. Let me get a piece of test medium. We gotta be quiet though, because I'm not going outside because I don't want to open the door because it sets off the alarm. Like you can hear it chirp. I don't want to wake my wife up. Let me go get this. Well, no, I don't know where it went. Oh well, I'll find something. Get that knife that Mattia Barani designed is, you're absolutely correct. That thing is so thin. It does an amazing job in the kitchen, which is, it's great because, well, it's a kitchen knife. So I don't know. I don't have any test medium, but I'm telling you right now, it's just popping hairs, like slinging them. Oh, I'm not even touching my skin. Yeah, but will that edge also do as well with? Fuck it, I'll go get a piece of magazine paper. Will that edge do as well with meats and things like that? I don't. I have never done one of my kitchen knives all the way up to 12,000 grit. I usually don't like taking kitchen knives much above 1,200 grit. It's fucking almost 8 o'clock in the morning. She can deal with it making noise. Oh. Mosquitoes are bad out here lately. I mean, it's been bad. I constantly have to use my fogger. Like, I'm going to come out here and I'm probably going to sharpen a lot of those knives that came in. I'm probably going to do them today. I feel like today is oh, I know what I forgot. I never stropped that after I sharpened. I'll grab my strop, my chromium oxide. And I'm going to say something that some people are going to just lambaste and beat up on me again. I have been having problems with the finish I'm getting on my diamond stones. I tried everything David Scott has told me. I'm having a problem where I don't get the finish I want out of my diamond stones. So what I found is that I think that I think that the grit transition that I'm doing needs something else in there. And what's happening is I need a step in there that's a little different. And I think that going from 250 to 600 is where I'm having my problem. So what I did was 250 on diamond, 400 on aluminum oxide, 600 on aluminum oxide, 650 on the diamond, and then to 1,000 on the diamond. And I'm not getting the problems I'm having with those matrix diamond stones. I think it's just too big of a jump from 250 to 650. So I threw my aluminum oxides back into the mix, and I have not had an issue, and I've had better results, and it's not taking me as long. So, whew. But I can feel that there's a little bit of a burr on that still, because I did take it right off the stone and then just put it in the block. So we're gonna just make sure I got that burr completely off. So, and the reason I'm not concerned about it, people are like, oh, you can't cut the, hey, what's up, Jason? I might be going to Portland this year. I don't know yet. I will definitely let you know. So people are like, oh, you can't cut those steels with aluminum oxide. It's aluminum. It's too soft. Got to looking into it, and Cliff Stamp gave me some advice. And there are definitely some steels, the carbides, that those aluminum oxides are almost too soft to cut, and so they might have a tendency to tear them out. But I'm not having that issue because the stones I use above the aluminum oxide are diamond, and I'm not running into that issue because I'm probably not sharpening those steels like the Rex 121 and things like that. Aluminum oxide is rated at a 9 on the Mohs scale, Mohs hardness scale. Diamond is a 10. Sapphires are made out. So everybody's like, oh, you need something like that sapphire or ruby, the synthetic, like the ceramics. They're all the same thing. Sapphires are aluminum oxide with, I forget what the compound in it that makes them turn the bluish red. And then rubies are mostly aluminum oxide with a little bit of chromium oxide. That's, for some reason, that turns red when it mixes. So aluminum oxide is as hard as sapphire or ruby because that's what it's made of. That's what rubies are made of. And so to say that you can't cut those steels with aluminum oxide is completely incorrect. My wife warns her friends every time they come. Any friends that come over, friends' wives, and they go to the kitchen and try and help. She's like, don't, just be careful with the kitchen knives. She's like, you're good, they're sharp. Do not hurt yourself. My friend's wife came over one time. My wife was in Japan, and a friend of mine and his wife came over, and she's like, oh, well, I'll do this and I'll do that. And I was like, all right, well, watch out for the kitchen knives. And then she was like, okay. And John was like, no, babe, you don't know what he's saying. She's like, you have no idea what he's talking about. He's like, you be very careful because I don't want to have to take you to the emergency room. She's like, what? And then she started using my knives. She's like, oh, no, that's a Mattia Barani Bowie Chef. I have one of the prototypes. If that won't cut your onions, nothing will. You're not going to cut them. You're not going to cut an onion with it. This is a Mattia Barani cutlery, the VG10 64-layer Damascus clad Bowie Chef. This was the Kickstarter. I just have one of the prototypes. It was a gift. It was a gift from Mattia. I did a review on it. I told him, I was like, hey, I'll do a review if you want to put it up. I wouldn't say that. Because they're not made by the same place. Magazine paper is actually harder to cut than you'd think. Magazine paper is thin, and a lot of times, like newsprint, it can be loosely knit. So for cutting matrix, like testing cutting, magazine paper, thin magazine paper, not the thicker, more cardstock stuff, but the nice, really thin magazine paper, I've found is probably the best test matrix. It's gonna let you know if the edge has got enough tooth to bite in, and it's gonna let you know if it's got enough smoothness of edge that it's not tearing. So you can look and see how clean the edge is, because then you've got print and things like that. And plus, guess what? Do you know how many free magazines get sent to you every day? Phone book paper works good, but I haven't gotten a phone book delivered in a long time. I used to have a bunch of phone books. Phone book paper is a good one too, but sometimes it is, especially if it's a damp day, it's not going to cut. It's going to tear. And the fact is, you can say what you want, but my sharpening, even though I do polished edges and stuff, I do a functional sharpening, because I got news for you. You know what most people that get my knives in are not doing? Yeah, but I also have sharpened probably in the last year more knives than most people will own in life. I've sharpened 15 knives this week, 15 or 20. And that's not even like, back when business was really good, I was doing 15 or 20 knives a day. So I like to provide an aesthetically pleasing edge that is also a work-ready edge, because a lot of guys like to take their stuff way, way up and use the wrong stropping material. They burnish their edges, and it's just looks, not actual functional. And even the edge that's on this knife, like, I love this knife. The edge on this knife is incredibly sharp. Like, you can shave the fuzz off the back side of where I tore it out of the magazine, which is a good metric as well. But the thing is, if I was to try and cut line and things like this, because this is a 12,000 grit edge, if I was to try and cut with a rope or line or something like it, it just doesn't have the bite. That kitchen knife would slice paper towels? No, I don't. It's 12,000 grit edge. It's not going to slice paper towels. Those guys you see slicing paper towels, that's probably like a 600, 800 grit edge, because it's really toothy, because that's what you need to cut through the, let's see. No, it's just sliding. It's sliding because, no, the toothier the edge, the more aggressive. See, that's the whole, there's a misconception. Everybody's like, oh, if you take it to 12,000 grit, it's sharper than it was at 1,000 grit. No, if you've apexed it properly, you can only get a knife so sharp. You can only get that edge so thin. What you've done is you've taken your micro serrations and you fined them. You're refining the edge. You're not sharpening it. That's why I say when you hit 1,000 grit, once you pass 1,000 grits, you've gone from sharpening to honing. Will this one do it? This one will. This one will cut a paper towel. I'm not trying to cut like, I hate cutting on camera. I always screw it up when I cut on camera. So that's cutting, not tearing. You can see it's cutting. But I got news for you. You know what I'm not cutting any day that I'm using a knife? Paper towels. Not cutting paper towels. You know what I might be cutting? Might be cutting something out of some paper packaging, or I might be cutting some line or rope, or I might be cutting something that is, I think some of it's silliness. I really do. And don't get me wrong, I make money by taking edges like this, but this edge is not just a 12,000 grit edge. I keep it toothy. You want a super, super fine edge? I can do it. Straight razors, super, super fine edge. But you know what you can't do with a straight razor? You can't cut much anything other than hair. I have opened mail with the Bowie Chef, by the way. I've come in with a handful of mail, and the Bowie Chef was happened to be on the counter because it had just been used and was laying on a paper towel to dry because I cut up some onions, and I just, why not? But that edge is a 12,000 grit edge, and it's not. Now, if I were to take and run it on this somewhat coarser, let's just go ahead and do it. I mean, I don't care. Because this is a much coarser finish. So you can only get things to a certain point. You can only thin the edge of steel so much before it breaks off. And therefore you can only get a knife so sharp. So once you get to a point where you are doing that and you've thinned it to the point where that burr edge is breaking off and things like that, you can't go any thinner. It molecularly will not stand it. It won't hold it. So what you do after that point is then you remove that scratch pattern and you go to something finer. And that's all you're doing. But then there's SM100, yes, that's true. Yeah, so stepping down to about, I think that's a 3,000 grit-ish. And I didn't strop it, so it's probably still got a little bit of a burr on one side. Let's see. Yeah, I can see it on the... So that's a much coarser edge. Can I do it? Yeah, but does it make sense to waste toilet paper? For like I see like my little buddy, Ben Spalos. I mean, that's super clean cut on a paper towel. I see Ben doing it all the time, and I'm like, I don't see that this is a better metric than what I'm doing with newsprint or magazine paper. You know what the difference is? I pay for these. None of that magazine paper out there I pay for. That's all I do is convex edges. Well, I mean, in all honesty, I just sharpened it because I needed to clear my head. And I had it, and I was like, fuck it. So, but you see what I'm saying? And a lot of it winds up being technique. How do you cut? I can't ever cut on camera. Like, I can cut naturally, but when I get myself in a position where you guys can see me, I can't do it as good as I want. So, you know, I honestly, as much, I mean, I like Ben and I'm really happy and I'm proud, but like he tells me all the time that like him learning how to sharpen as well as he has, a lot of that came from me and things like, I'm proud of that. Like I influenced a lot of people on like how they sharpen and their knowledge of what sharpening is and the difference between like a mirror edge that is not at all functional for things, and then a mirror edge that you could still take this knife out and use it. But the fact is, I got news for you. I got guys that want, you said you have a 17,000 grit, I want to go to 17,000. It's not sharper. It's no sharper at 17,000 than it was at 4,000. And just like steel, 99% of the people, if I gave them a 3,000 grit finish, and a 12,000 grit finish, you can't visibly see the difference. What you can feel is much more dangerous to touch that edge because the bite that it gets at a lower grit. I offer the higher grit because people want it. And when somebody says, hey, I want 12,000 grit, if I was a shady kind of cat, I would tell you, okay, fine. And I would just sharpen it. But if any of you guys have ever been a new customer, ask and like, hey, well, I want to go to 12,000 grit, but you know, this and that. I'm like, hey, you know, maybe just hear me out. Why don't we see what a 3,000 or 5,000 grit edge feels like for you? Because if you get a 12,000 grit edge and then you try and go cut paper, or not paper, but you try and cut some rope or something like that, you might not be happy with the results, and then you're going to bash me on social media. I have had people do that. I want a 12,000 grit edge. And I was like, I don't think you do. No, I want 12,000 grit. I want it as sharp as possible. And I'm like, I'm telling you. And then I get the knife and they're like, dude, I got this knife and it wouldn't cut. You couldn't cut anything. It's just for show. And I'm like, I tried to tell you, you couldn't at 12,000 grit cut like heavy line and things like that. I do believe that I asked you, what are you going to use this knife for? Caveat emptor, buyer beware, 8,000 grit for wood tools. 12,000 grit, now I will tell you, I do 12,000 grit on wood tools all the time. Hand chisels and things like that. And do you know why I do that? Because planer blades, hand plane blades at 12,000 grit, you don't have to sand as much. It's a much finer, smoother, consistent cut. 12,000 grit on a woodworking tool is great because your cuts have got less stria. You don't have to sand as much. It's not doing as much tearing of the wood fibers in the grain as it goes through because there's less of a tooth. It's finer. Finer edge, finer finish cut on woodworking tools. That's where I would disagree. I think that woodworking tools should go as high as you can get them. If you can get a 17,000 or a 30,000 grit stone, by all means, you may never have to sand it. It's just, I mean, it depends on what you're gonna do with it. On a woodworking tool, I think a finer edge would be way better. More of a clean finish cut. And it's, lighting is weird again today. I'm glad I'm not shooting a video right now. Case in point, all right. Working knife and basically show knife. For a kitchen nun? Wait, okay, grind or edge? Because grind is the primary grind. Edge, bevel, edge angle. And guys, I do everything freehand. Okay, so this is 1,000 grit edge. This is what I carry for work. This is a 12,000 or higher. This is not something I'm gonna carry for work. This knife cuts rope and polypropylene and filter paper edge. I mean, when you're looking at a kitchen knife, the primary thing that you need to worry about for a kitchen knife is how thick the blade is. Let's look at my chef's knife versus my wife's chef's knife. See how much this is brought down super thin? This is not. This is fairly blunt. This grind is more important than the edge grind because when you get the blade thin, like as thin as this is, it really doesn't matter what your edge angle is because it's so thin that that apex on it really is almost not there. There's no real shoulder to deal with. This is so super thin. Grinomatic also has my videos up. They have a link to my videos. Here's the thing, I've been offered sponsorships. People are like, how do you know how many sponsored videos? I've been offered sponsorships. Problem is, the companies that wanted to sponsor me, I wasn't sure that I liked their product or their service. Probably about, I mean, for a kitchen knife, you can go fairly thin, because you're not like, I mean, okay. So a kitchen knife, you can go kind of thin if you're cutting specific things. So there we go. What are you going to cut with it? A knife that you're cutting harder vegetables that you're going to cut through and have to slam through and into a cutting board. Morning, kiddo.
Don't you love waking up with your nose bleeding all over your face?
Oh, that's not good. Daughter woke up with a bloody nose. You didn't get on your pillowcase or anything, did you?
No, I woke up and then it started bleeding.
Okay. So if you're cutting through a hard vegetable and into that cutting board, you want you want a more robust, steep edge with on a thin blade, because it's gonna slam in. You want something to support that. If it's gonna be a knife like a fillet knife that you're gonna cut, you want that paper thin. So once again, what are you gonna cut with it? If it's an all-around kitchen knife, probably no shallower than like 15 degrees per, or like maybe 12 degrees per side. That's a 24-degree edge. But I had a guy that told me he wanted a 20-degree inclusive, which is 10 degrees per side, and it was insane. So the grind finish. So with a finishing edge, I like to just an average, like right about this winds up getting used on all my knives. So let's go ahead and say 3,000 grit. I may sharpen these knives to like 5 or 6,000, 5,000, 4,000 grit, or 2,000 grit. But the fact is that after I use it once, it gets touched up with this, so they wind up being 3,000 grit anyway. So I would say 3,000 grit. That's a good all-around edge grit for kitchen knives. And like I said, you saw, oh, hell, I'll waste a little bit more money. Let's see. So this is a garbage old Farberware that is it's older than 20 years. I had this for several years when my wife and I got married. Let's do a little experiment. So even this thick knife with my freehand, oh, this knife is bad. There we go. I'll knock the burr off, if there is any. No, I just don't think that this knife will do it. It's trying to. It's trying to, but it's not great. It cut, but not great. What's up, Jack? So, but I mean, I actually did thin this significantly so that this knife was usable again. My wife likes this knife. She likes this knife. She always has. I had a nicer knife and she didn't like it. So, but that knife's a lot thicker. But still, even that garbage knife, just touching on it. So 3,000 grit. Those are actually, you can see those are cuts with that crappy, yeah, about 3,000. It started with the cuts, but then it tore. Like I said, that's a 1,000 grit edge on that recurve. It probably needs touched up a little bit. This is a workhorse knife too. It's probably got, because I used the crap out of it, it's probably got some dings and, there we go. Nah, still, I mean, it's trying to. You can see it's trying to cut. But nothing like that kitchen knife was. And it has a lot to do with edge. Has a lot to do with blade thickness and things like that. Yeah. But like I said, I mean, can I do it? Yeah, I can. I just choose to use a much cheaper testing matrix. What's the best price for anything you're going to use a lot of? Free. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. And like I said, this is an extremely thin knife with a really thin edge. By default, the edge is going to be thin. And it cuts paper towel just fine. So, but I will say that that is incredibly hard on your edge. Any paper is incredibly hard on your edge. So, I mean, if all you're going to do is cut paper, yeah, then if all you're gonna do is cut paper, then by all means put whatever edge you want on it. But like I said, most of my customers are not going to just cut paper and cut wood, rope, dirt, and things like that. That's why I like a convex edge. It's more robust. Convex edge is more robust. I love it. I do a convex edge on everything just by default, by the way I sharpen. There's a rocking motion that gets done. For the paying members, I'm going to put up, I still need to shoot it. I'm doing the second in the series for the top tier paying members, for the 15 a month guys. I'm doing the second in the sharpening tutorial probably this week or this weekend. And it's going to talk about stones and abrasives and what's right for you. So if you guys want in on that tutorial series, it's for the top tier paying members. So I had thought about doing like a class and then everybody'd have to send me money and then to get access to it. And that just, no one ever bought in on it. But so when I added it as one of the tiers, one of the benefits for the paying members, for memberships on the channel, when they join, it seems like a better idea. And plus it's so much easier. The membership is so much easier than Patreon ever was. Patreon didn't like my content. And so there's a lot of times I try to put stuff up for the Patreons, and it just would, it never went up because Patreon didn't like my content. So they're like, oh, that goes against our that goes against our rules of stuff. And I'm like, what the crap? So I've got people that were paying me for stuff on Patreon that they could never get. And so now that YouTube has allowed me to have memberships and you can pay directly into the channel to support the channel with the join button, it's so much easier because all I have to do is when I put up content, now that I have memberships, I hit a little tab. Who does this go to? Oh, this goes to these people. And then I make an announcement in the community tab to those people. And I'm like, oh, this is great. This is so easy. And Patreon takes way more of the money monthly than YouTube and Google do. So with that being said, guys, if you want to join the channel, there should be in the description, there should be a link. If not, it's on the homepage. Guys, I'm getting ready to bounce. Please, if you have not done a thumbs up, do so on your way out. I'd appreciate it. Guys, I got to go. I got stuff to do today. I will talk to you all later. Take it easy.